Alright guys, Touchgrabber here again today, and I want to talk about gentlemen's agreements again, because the GA list has been updated a few days ago with some more things coming onto the list as well, tends to happen as the year goes on. So I want to talk about it today. Once again, it's a very controversial topic. I'm sure you'll have different opinions in the comment section below. I'm going to be maybe a little bit more opinionated than usual. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what the list is right now. You can kind of see it on screen thanks to Intel Call of Duty on Twitter. Going to go through what the pros are actually allowed to do according to the rulebook. Then I'm going to go through some opinion on it, and then I want to go through some Reddit threads and some comment chains and some different opinions and give my thoughts on those. I think it should be an interesting video. As always, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new, and let's get right on in with it. So this is the GA list as of now. Ijax, I think that's how you want me to pronounce it, and Talk have been officially banned from competitive play a while ago, so those no longer have to be gentlemen's agreemented. There's a few things which are, banned anyway. Then we have the GA list, which includes the Mozu, which is the pistol. Pros have been using it for a while. They've now decided it's a bit too strong. I honestly think that's kind of fair, considering it's a 3-shot out to a ridiculous range. It will outgun like a Sorg up close. Kind of insane. Stock 2 is GA'd. I want to go more in depth on this in a second. Its GA was, I think, justified in the old Sorg, when you could move ridiculously quick and it really gave no chance. And the fact that shoulder peeking you could do with it was pretty insane. But now I think they've kind of toned back stock. I don't think it's too ridiculous to suggest it should be allowed again. Double equipment kind of makes sense. Double stuns, always a bit ridiculous. Sensor dart as well. Even though the sensor dart's not as good in CWL rule set as it is in public matches. Basically, you fire out the sensor dart, it just blows up once and then it explodes. But you can get early info in like S&Ds and stuff, firing it across the map to get early info on where they're going. So maybe they think it's a bit ridiculous. Annihilator, which I talked about a couple of days ago, they've been using this for a while, but the Annihilator now is about GA'd apparently. I did suggest this idea where maybe you make it like one in the chamber for CWL rules only, so that if you miss a shot, it disappears. And yeah, even Bevel's DM'd me to say that was a good idea, so lovely stuff, isn't it? But I think that does kind of imply one of the issues with the game and why these GAs have to come into effect, in that, okay, the Annihilator may well be too strong. A change like that, or, a number of other possible changes, like even a reduction of damage on the Annihilator, so maybe crash would mean it takes 2 shots or something like that. Those kind of changes take a while to get implemented, and that's really the fundamental reason why the GA list has to exist, in my opinion. But we'll go through those sort of ideas in a second here. Grapple gun is banned in Search and Destroy, or at least gentlemen's agreemented. Basically, GA stands for like something that the pros decide not to use on the whole because it harms competitive integrity. Now that is the general reason. I do think the pros can go too far at times, but I think on the whole, lots of these issues are justified. I do want to go through a couple of things where I think they've gone a little bit too far in the past and, now, but I think on the whole, the idea in principle makes sense, and I'll go through exactly why it has to be done, in my opinion, in a couple of minutes here. So the Molotov's also banned, like that's just, it's a little bit ridiculous. I'm sure you guys agree with a lot of these things. Now, yes, the Annihilator, the 6 shots, it's been undoubtedly the strongest specialist weapon in the game for the last couple of months. It has, huge ramifications for how the game plays out, and it's a gun, it kills in 1 bullet. You don't even have to cock it back after every shot. It is very strong indeed. Now also, the AI streaks apparently have been G8. The drone squad, the sniper's nest, and the chopper. A lot of people have been complaining, like in the community, about the AI streaks, especially the drone squad. I think is quite ridiculous, especially in Search and Destroy. If you plant the bomb, you stand on the bomb, someone kills you, the drone squad stays hovering around the bomb site and can defend it, and it's very difficult to deal with it. And yeah, the auger has also been got rid of, and yeah, that's like the 3-shot gun up. It fires ridiculously quickly now. It's effectively the Shiva or the FAL from past games. Only kills in 3 bullets, but it does fire superly fast, and it kind of makes sense to go. On the surface here, it very much looks like the pros are just trying to keep to the meta that they liked. The 1 ICR, the 2 Maddox, and the 2 Sorg. And I think what I find quite interesting is that when the patch hit with the Maddox and the Sorg getting nerfed, before the patch or when it was announced, a lot of people in the community and on Reddit were saying, oh, they're going to ruin the meta. We love the 2 Sorg, 2 Maddox, 1 ICR meta. But now this has happened, I see a lot of people saying, why are the pros GAing other weapons that would have been used? You're just reducing the differentials in what weapons can be played in the game, and you're just making a very stale meta. Which, okay, maybe there's some argument to that. Also, some of you guys might think the Swordfish has been gentlemen's agreemented. supposedly Optic were playing Red Reserve in a scrim, and I think Scraps maybe pulled out the Swordfish, or one of the players, and Optic like ended the scrim saying you can't use it. But there is this DM between Blazd and Attach saying that, you know, Attach is using the Swordfish. Now supposedly Attach is now on Evil Geniuses, so, you know, I'll talk about that in a couple of days time when all of that stuff gets set in stone. But yeah, so supposedly the Swordfish hasn't been fully gentleman's agreemented yet. One of the divisions haven't necessarily agreed, but yeah, not all the teams have agreed to the Swordfish, so it's not necessarily that it's going to be GA'd yet. The Swordfish is an interesting one, I think, because I don't think it's particularly strong. They increase the speed that you move with it, and they increase the ADS time and the like. And a lot of people, I think it was this tweet between Parasite and Zero here, where Treyarch says, oh, can you please buff the Sorg or something back? And Haggy just says, we need to allow double stock back in and that's it. Now, this is the reason I think that the Swordfish is being considered too strong. SMGs are at a severe disadvantage right now since the Swordfish is abusive when players can't strafe. And yes, with only stock 1 on the Sorg, that is certainly an issue, but the reduced movement speed of the Sorg makes it even worse. Yeah, that's basically what he's saying here. But if you allow double stock back in, then I don't really see the issue with the Swordfish. I feel like that kind of kills two birds with one stone right there, and I'm surprised they haven't considered it. And that's why I do think the pros go too far on this sometimes. Do want to touch on real quick, why do the pros do this? Generally because the developers are not quick to react to the issues within the game. If something's too strong, if something's overpowered, if something creates a lot of randomness within the game, the developers may not want to take it out, such as a lot of the specialists, and also they may be very slow to react to getting rid of it. So, you know, Ijax and Talk took a couple of months to be removed from the rule set, even though the pros were never going to play with them for day one. So a lot of these things, maybe they will be removed from the rule set down the line, a couple of months' time. But the pros want to make the game as competitively integral as possible. So basically they want the game to be as fair and as even as possible, so that the best team wins most of the time, or as much as possible. And I think there's a disconnect in the community between the people who enjoy watching games that are competitively integral and the best team wins all the time, and between people who enjoy watching a lot of the flashy plays. And that kind of paradigm, and that maybe it's not a dichotomy, but that idea we're going to talk about in a few minutes time here. So I wanted to say real quick, to those of you who maybe think that gentlemen's agreements are always a bad thing and they can never be good, I just want to refer to World War II and the ITRA. So the ITRA was the 4-shotgun, the 4-round burst, the Swordfish equivalent, the M8 equivalent. And that weapon was considered so strong by the professionals that when they were scrimming Search and Destroy, according to Brian Saint, every single person was just using an ITRA. And if it had been allowed, the meta would have been much more stale with probably just ITRAs and PPSHs than what we saw with PPSHs, bars and STGs, and, you know, more snipers being used because there wasn't a super strong assault rifle like the ITRA. So I think on that premise, GAs can be a good thing in principle, considering the pros are so much better with some guns that, you know, the average casual player finds difficulty using because they have such good aim. So the MX Garand or the M1 Garand last year, and, you know, the same idea with the ITRA being ridiculously good in the hands of a pro. So I think on the whole, they can be a good thing. And once you accept that initial premise, you can kind of see where the pros are coming from. I do think they go too far at times though. You've got this issue with the Swordfish potentially being GA'd. I don't really see the necessity of that, considering, as I say, if you allow double stock on the Sorg, then I think a lot of these issues go away. I wanted to refer quickly to Counter-Strike. If you guys have been watching this latest major, we have this situation where the AUG, the AUG, the counter-terrorist rifle has been used much more prevalently than it has been done in the past. And I guarantee, or at least I find it highly likely, that if it was the Call of Duty community in the Counter-Strike scene, that they would have decided, oh, this isn't our game, this isn't what the game should be like, and, you know, because it really recently got reduced in value, and they would just gentleman's agreement it or something like that. But the Counter-Strike community haven't done that. I do think the COD community can go too far, but I think in principle the gentleman's agreement's idea is a good one to make the game as fair as possible. Now, let's talk about whether they can actually do this. In the Pro League handbook, this is effective from 28th of January this year, so about a month ago. Collusion includes, but is not limited to, acts such as agreeing to a rule set outside the rules. So it is in the rulebook that they actually cannot do this. Now, if it was behind the scenes, if you're talking legally, it's difficult for MLG, say, to, you know, impose charges, because the pros can just say, oh, we don't think it's viable, we're not using it or whatever. But it's so obvious, like they talk about these things on Twitter all the time, the GAs and that. If MLG and League Ops really wanted to force these guys to use the actual rule set, it's definitely possible because they talk about it very publicly and it is in the rules, but they don't do that for some reason. Now, whether they think that's because part of what the pros are doing is fair is, well, another story. So I wanted to go through a few comments on Reddit here surrounding the topic and just show some different opinions on the matter so you guys can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. This is a post where the original poster had the opinion that the Annihilator should not be allowed and gentleman's agreementing it is a good idea. So this commenter says, imagine a Game 5 Round 11 1v1 situation that decides a championship where stakes are very high. The crowd is silent in anticipation. The adrenaline is pumping. It's all down to pure gun skill and in-game IQ. You turn the corner, find the enemy, proceeding to aim and complete lock on, and boom, Annihilator. One shot beamed and you're done. Championship down the drain because you were outplayed by something you had no control over and couldn't counter in any aspect. Yeah, the Annihilator cheese has to go. Tempest needs to be next, supposedly, according to this opinion. And OG the Killer, who loves commenting on stuff like this, he says you can basically put a specialist in the place of Annihilator and it's the same story. Doesn't like specialists in competitive, period. And I think that generally sums up a reasonable sentiment. Now let's go on to some other opinions, because what I have seen and discussed a little bit is that some people think that the fact that gentlemen's agreements are in the game turns off people from watching. Now this is an interesting point because I don't see it that way, but there is actually a comment here in a post made by someone who doesn't want to watch because the gentlemen's agreements are in effect, which is definitely an interesting paradigm to look at here. Now this is a great discussion between the two of them. Biatch proper makes a fantastic few points in these couple of threads I want to look at here, and yeah, you guys can read through this. I think I'll discuss them a little bit at length, and I think the idea that he represents, that both of these guys represent, is the paradigm between people liking the flashy plays and people liking the competitive integrity of the game. What I find so fascinating about Counter-Strike and why I really love watching it is that the flashy plays are few and far between. You can watch many rounds and it's going to take a long time for someone to pop a 3k headshot and, just win the round by themselves. Those super flashy plays, they're rare, but as a result, they're super exciting. And one of the things I found with Call of Duty, especially with the specialists, maybe I'm getting a little bit off topic here, but I think it's relevant at least to the Annihilator. One of the things I find is that these flashy plays, they happen all the time. The Annihilator is getting pulled out every few minutes. The specialists are coming into play. The Grav Slam, it diminishes the excitement of them. The amount of skill it takes to use an Annihilator and hit all 6 shots is quite a lot, but the fact that it happens so often and it's so easy to use generally it takes away from the excitement of someone making a truly god tier play. In addition to that, the amount of randomness that these things can create, the fact that, you can pull one out, there's barely any counters to it. You got something like a Grav Slam where you can slam it and sometimes the guy will just go around the corner and you won't be able to kill them or something like that. There's a lot of randomness which is associated with these specialists, whether the Tempest will chain to someone, whether they're just a smidge too close or they're not. So Dantastic suggests that the game with GAs is not what the true competitive experience should be. Now, Biatch proper argues that the true competitive experience is one with a very high competitive integrity. And yes, I do tend to agree with his opinion that I don't want to read through this comment because I want to read through a comment in just a second here, which I think perfectly summarizes the difference here. I wonder what you guys think about this. Do you enjoy watching the crazy flashy highlight plays, or would you prefer them to be few and farther between, but when they happen you know that it's a lot of skill, you know that it's really important, and you know that the best team's going to win, not just off a lot of randomness? Because that is the stance that I tend to take, and that's why I tended to prefer the older Call of Duties over this one, and I don't like it when round 11 is a complete specialist fest. Now I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I'm sure there are some people that differ from this opinion, for sure, as there always are. People that think that, yes, I do prefer the flashy plays, I do prefer, the Grav Slams and all that stuff. That's absolutely fine. But what I'm interested in is that Counter-Strike and these other, better premium esports per se, they have this level of competitive integrity. And I wonder whether it's the people that are not necessarily more mature, but people who are more interested in the competitive scene and who is actually the better team and who's going to win. Those kind of people tend to prefer those more premium games. And Call of Duty, especially the way it's going, doesn't really satisfy those desires. And maybe that's part of the reason why the game hasn't reached the heights in the last couple of years that maybe it has several years in the past, and why it hasn't really breached that margin right yet because it's catering to the more casual side of things. So it's an interesting paradigm because some people would say that gentlemen's agreements, you know, they help kill the game. It creates a disconnect between the casual and the competitive scene, which Dantastic says right here, which is a fair point to some degree. But I also think that there's definitely an argument to be said that it does hinder fans that really enjoy watching for the competitiveness of the game and find interest and find enjoyment in watching the best team win, I guess, rather than just, you know, flashy plays happening all over the place. So it's interesting to hear your thoughts on that. This is the second half of this conversation right here, so if you want to pause and read through it, you feel free to do so. It's very interesting indeed. This is the comment I wanted to go through. Crim6 even replies to this one saying he basically hits the nail on the head here. So I just want to read through this to finish the video because this pretty much sums up my stance, and I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. So people have no idea what competitive integrity is. They just want to watch flashy kills that take no brain. This community seems to get worse in that regard every year, and it really sucks. I don't understand why literally all of these specialist abilities and streaks completely anti-competitive. You have no idea how much better this game used to be as far as tactics. Now the game is almost nothing but abusing cameras and trading kills by using free equipment and abilities. BO4 has potential to be the best game we've had since Black Ops 2, but no, let's bitch about pros that want integrity because we want broken flash mechanics for my viewership though. Real sick game. People don't even like CTF anymore when it had always been the most competitive game type we have when the spawns and maps work like they did in Black Ops 2. You don't have to see 60 kill games to enjoy the esport. As a matter of fact, with that many engagements happening, it means every engagement means less. The best part of COD was always the unique way that map spawn and spawn influence and objectives played out. It gets diminished every year. This year we finally have some pretty sick maps and the spawns are logical. These pros want some actual competitive integrity to the game they want to be the best at. And little Timmy, who thinks he's the next scum, just wants to see flashy 90 kill games from people dashing around like idiots and using equipment, abilities and weapons that ruin the importance of the fundamentals of FPS. Imagine how shitty CSGO would be if you could dash around a corner and see your opponent, get 5 shots into them before you even appear on their screen. People would freak out and Valve would fix it. In this game, people would go apeshit if they even took out the broken sliding or slowed it down. Splice literally runs a clinic on the fundamentals of map control and like 200 people upvote it, but some flashy kill streak or meme gets posted and everyone creams their jeans. The views are down because this game has little competitive integrity and people like me just give up and move on to more competitive games. What we have right here in Black Ops 4 could be the most competitive COD game we have since most of you even knew what an esport was, and tons of people are seriously bitching when the pros try and make it the best it can be. They adapt more than any pro player in any other game has ever or will have ever to do. They aren't just banning stuff to make the game easier, they just want the game more consistent, more competitive, and they want the smartest, best coordinating teams to be able to win as consistently as possible because guess what? They are all in the belief that their team can be just that. So I don't agree with everything in there, but I think on the whole that sentiment is an interesting one. And gentlemen's agreements on the whole I think can be a positive. So I'm sure you leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. You're the war machine. It's time to go.
What the fuck?
What was that? Did he turn 360 or something? Oh, that's funny, like. You've actually been a world star. That is quality.
I missed you getting world star, and then I missed the cam, so I missed both of it. I missed it twice, like.
Oh, that's so funny. I've never seen that before.